I can't believe this is happening. There is a new stimulus update. We may see more stimulus money going out to the people. New stimulus programs have been proposed to prevent families from slipping into poverty as the U.S. enters a recession. Millions of people have been waiting for stimulus checks from the Fed, and now there are several bills put forward by Congress in order to receive this extra stimulus cash. For instance, legislation will need bipartisan support, and so far there are many lawmakers that are trying to move forward with more help from parents. The expanded child tax credit provided no strings attached cash payments to 39 million families in 2021 and 2022. It lifted millions of people out of poverty. The expanded child tax credit was part of the American Rescue Plan. It passed in the spring of 2021 when the policy beefed up an existing tax credit paid to the parents of dependent children. Under the new provision, families got $3,600 a year for each kid under 5 and $3,000 for each kid 5 to 18. It also paid out money in installments and made the credit fully refundable, meaning that families that only receive any owed federal income tax and still got the full amount. And even Democratic senators like Michael Bennet called for an extension of the child tax credit, just to help families cover rising costs in a speech on the Senate floor. There have been also over 100 economists that have sent Congress a letter saying that the expanded child tax credit is one of the easiest, most effective, and direct tools currently at the government's disposal to help families deal with the impact of inflation on family budgets. The good news is millions of people could still receive stimulus payments in 2023. A large number of states are continuing to deliver financial relief for the residents, and this trend will continue into 2023 as well. Eligible Idaho residents will receive payments equal to greater of 10% of the amount that they are reported on their 2020 tax returns. It's either $300 or $600 everybody for a single or joint filer. The good news is millions of people could still receive stimulus in 2023. A large number of states are continuing to deliver financial relief for residents, and this trend will continue in 2023. Eligible residents will receive payments equal to the greater of 10% of the amounts reported on their tax returns, or either $300 or $600 for single or joint filers. According to state officials, checks may continue to go on next year. The California taxpayers started receiving stimulus checks this October. As of December 9, more than 6.9 million direct deposits have been issued and 6.8 million debit cards have been sent out. But millions of residents are still waiting for the one-time payout, and officials say they don't expect to finish sending out the funds until mid-January. Payments of $1,500 for joint filers or $750 for single tax filers will be sent out to Colorado residents who did not even yet receive them due to delayed submission of their tax returns. The remaining payments are expected to be sent on January 31st. And now, according to ABC News, holiday sales rose this year again as American spending remained resilient during a critical shopping season, despite surging prices on everything from food to rent. Holiday sales rose 7.6%, a slower pace than the 8.5% increase from a year earlier, when shoppers began spending the money they had saved during the early part of the crisis. New data shows the U.S. sales between November 1st and December 24th, a period that is critical for retailers, were fueled by spending at restaurants and on clothing. By category, clothing rose 4.4%, while jewelry and electronics dipped roughly 5%. Online sales jumped 10.6% from a year ago, and in-person spending rose 6% again. Department stores registered a modest 1% increase over 2021. Some of the increase reflected the impact of higher prices across the board. Consumer spending amounts for nearly 70% of the U.S. economic activity, and Americans have remained resilient ever since inflation first spiked almost a month ago. But inflation has retreated from the 4-decade high it reached during the summer. It's still sapping its spending power of consumers. Prices rose 8% from a year ago, down from a peak of 9% in June. While people of all ages are struggling, they are over 65 often that even have a harder time because they usually live on a fixed income and unable to pay their paychecks with overtime or bonuses. The problem will become more widespread in the coming years as baby boomers turn 65, and we're waiting for stimulus to be sent out sooner than later.
Fiscal responsibility is possible. It's not a pipe dream. In fact, if we just cut our spending to what we spent in 2019, just 3 years ago, we would actually have a balanced budget today. Instead, we have jumped from a deficit that was 6% of our GDP to a deficit that is 12% of our GDP. We are adding debt at an alarming rate. We are adding debt at a greater pace than we ever have in the history of our country. Thankfully, some of our predecessors in Congress anticipated this lack of restraint, and they gave us some guideposts. They gave us some rules. They established guardrails and tools to keep our budget in check. For example, there is a rule called the Statutory Pay-Go Act, or PAYGO for short. It requires that if you have new spending, it has to be offset by cuts elsewhere in the budget or elsewhere in the spending bill. Despite equipping our government with this necessary tool, though, Congress, with almost every budget in recent history, abuses its power, spends like drunken sailors, and ignores the fact that a day of reckoning is coming. Unfortunately, Congress has virtually 100% of the time voted to waive the pay-go requirements. The American people demand accountability for the damage the big government spenders are doing to our families and to our nation's economic well-being. I will not allow my colleagues to escape accountability by hiding behind 4,000 pages of legislative text. I therefore will raise a budget point of order as this bill comes to the floor that will put every member of the Senate on record as to where they stand on fiscal responsibility. Unfortunately, most of the senators,
their extreme MAGA Republicans, are gathered to unveil their latest bill to criminalize women's health in all 50 states. The bill calls for a penalty of 5 years in federal prison for doctors performing abortions. This is a democracy issue, it's a freedom issue, but it's also a kitchen table issue for America's working families. It comes right to the heart of decision-making.
New data was released that shows that the majority of Americans are experiencing financial hardships due to inflation. Lawmakers have agreed to provide some financial assistance to low-income households, including families and senior citizens. Up to $1,200 can be claimed right now. And also, here is some good news. Extra financial help is coming from most Hawaiian taxpayers. Eligible taxpayers will start getting tax rebate checks from Hawaii of up to $300 over the next several weeks. The latest stimulus check is actually a constitutionally mandated tax rebate created by an increase in estate tax revenue. This week, the Hawaii governor announced that eligible taxpayers will start receiving estate tax refunds next week. The governor noted that the refund would either arrive by direct deposit or a paper check in the mail. The governor said, "It is my hope that the $300 million in tax refunds being distributed so far brings some relief to the hardworking people of the state of Hawaii, who are hit hard by this crisis." The first round of direct deposits will start getting into bank accounts on or around Monday and will continue over the next 2 weeks, despite the paper checks taking longer than expected due to supply chain issues. According to the Taxation Department, the state currently has 50,000 checks in stock and will be issuing a paper check in batches of 2,000 until a new shipment arrives. The department expects that all paper checks are going to be issued by the end of October. The law requires Hawaii to send money back to taxpayers or put the money into a rainy day fund if it carries over a balance over the past 2 years is more than 5%.